Tonight on The Bachelor, it was the moment we've all been waiting for, and Juan Pablo had his last two final dates in the gorgeous island of St. Lucia, and Nikki and Claire both met Juan Pablo's family. His parents, his daughter, cousins, and they really sat down with both of them and said, hey, listen, how do you feel about Juan Pablo? Are you in love? They both said yes. And the most interesting thing that his cousin Rodolfo said, he said, hey, listen, I love Juan Pablo, but what happens when you guys argue and fight? He has a tendency to walk out. And what would you do at this point? Would you stand up for that? And Claire was like, hey, listen, if that happens, of course. If I love someone, of course I will. And Nikki said the same thing. Now, that was a red flag right there, if you ask me. Now, when it came to Claire's final one-on-one date with Juan Pablo, they got off this gorgeous helicopter ride at the island, and they had some time where there were no cameras and no mics. And at that time, when Juan Pablo, was going to say the most romantic thing, like Claire thought, he didn't. He was like, hey, something alluding to I just want to hook up with you. And, definitely not what Claire wanted to hear, and she lost all respect for him at that moment. So later on in their one-on-one date, she said, hey, listen, I have a bone to pick with you. There's no besitos right now. And she was wondering why he said that and how he really feels. And she wanted some reassurance, and believe it or not, he gave it to her, even though that's the time when he actually should have sent her home to avoid the embarrassment later in the episode. The other one-on-one date Nikki had, they had a beautiful catamaran ride, and they had, a very romantic date, and Juan Pablo said, hey, listen, do you have any doubts or concerns? And she said, I'm a little concerned that sometimes you're guarded, and, she was in love with him and he wouldn't say it, but they can't say it. It's The Bachelor. They don't do it on the show. When it came to the proposals and Claire actually walked off that boat, Juan Pablo wanted, to be like, I love you, but he couldn't. And he needed to actually reject her and send her home, and that's the last thing she wanted to hear. She fought back, she talked back, and was like, you know what, I wouldn't want to be the father of my kids anyway because you are ridiculous. And she really gave it to him, and she really stood up. When it came to Nikki walking out of the boat, Juan Pablo said, hey, listen, your father asked me to be 100% sure when I proposed to you. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not 100% sure right now. So he threw a twist in it and said, but I'm 100% sure I don't want to lose you, and I'm going to hold on to this ring in my pocket. What were your thoughts on the lack of proposal? Did you think Juan Pablo was being honest? It's okay?